I'm actually going to be taking care of some housekeeping before getting into the topic of today. Foremost, I'm not going to go over my NFL picks, but I will tell you that after yesterday, I'm surprisingly 10-3-1. I actually did pick the Giants to win that game, but then I remembered the Giants had Daniel Jones. That was sad. Actually, Daniel Jones played really well. It was just some poor time management on the Giants' part during overtime. So I'm 10-3-1, and I also do have there's a new One Piece manga chapter out right now, but I'll wait until tomorrow to do that. But before, let me backtrack a little bit. I'm picking the Buccaneers to win tonight, so I have an NFL pick to make. Gotta do that. That's why I'm wearing the jersey. So I'm picking the Bucs to win. There we go. And there's a new One Piece manga chapter out, but I think I'll wait until tomorrow to react to it proper, because I really do feel like what I have to say today takes priority. With that said, I do have a low and high in act of kindness. And I will admit my low came in the form of a bit of a scare, because prior to starting this video, I couldn't find my wallet. I found it eventually. I accidentally left it in another coat I was wearing yesterday. But the fact that pretty much up until right before I started this video, everything was fine, that should probably tell you how, it should set up what I'm about to talk about. But my high act of kindness was my mom made corned beef last night, corned beef and cabbages, and so I helped set up and clear the table. As well as the fact that I did that. My parents left the kitchen a mess, so I cleaned the kitchen up a little bit. There was a full garbage bag, so I removed the garbage bag. And what else? That's about it. So, good morning, happy Monday, and welcome to the state of my being address. For those of you who are new to watching me, the idea for this video came out around the time where the President of the United States is doing the State of the Union address, and I thought, you know what? I could probably use at least some sort of opportunity to elaborate on how I'm feeling, or sort of recap what's happened over the span of a period of time. In this case, I decided I was going to do this every 100 days because, 100 days, it's a pretty significant amount of time, but not so significant that I ultimately wind up forgetting to do it. Because if I wait a whole year, that's too long. And again, I would eventually forget to do this. But, any shorter than 100 days, and it would get kind of repetitive. 100 days is the right amount for me. That's good. And my God, I've been doing this for 1,800 days. Can you believe that? I'm coming on the end of 5 years with the beginning of this 5th year probably being, well, it started off with some promise, but things really kept spiraling out of control. I was making some poor decisions, and on top of all that, I got my heart broken. So, needless to say, well, actually, there were a few good moments that happened I'd say from, 2/3 of this year. From January to very late August. So literally 2/3 of this year. 2022 is not looking so good. Again, I mentioned all the aforementioned stuff, and there were some good moments too. There were, there was the days during the summer I spent at Cuckoo Lake. Those are always great. I became a godfather. I started making better decisions, but and actually there were a few good holidays too. The usual Valentine's Day, St. Patrick's Day, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, 4th of July. The holidays are almost guaranteed to be good, are pretty much guaranteed to be good days. And obviously New Year's Day, because it's a new day of the new year, of course it's going to be a good day. But everything else seemed kind of either mundane or kind of melancholy, I guess. So, around the time I did the last State of My Being address in late August, I really wanted the last third of this year to truly be the best. Because from late August, I believe it was the 24th or maybe it was August 25th, whatever day 1700 was, I'm sorry. So from day 1700 until now, there was a lot to look forward to. But there was also, there were some bad parts too. For starters, let's get to the bad. The biggest bad thing that happened, I say bad, really I mean sad. And that was the fact that, we closed our college we closed our college at Cuckoo Lake for the winter. I mean, the one person on earth I think who probably legit has their emotions in check, at least from my perspective, is my father. When my father admits that he's happy about something or sad about something or whatever, you're not going to find anyone more brutally honest. So when my father says that he was sad that we're no longer going to Cuckoo Lake, trust me, he meant it. And if he's sad, I gotta be sad about that too. But it's not like we closed it forever. I mean, we closed it, what, over 2 months ago? So it's already been 2 months. And we just gotta wait another, let's see, January, February, March, April. Another 5 months. So it's moving right along. That's good. And it's a real shame too, because one bad thing that happened prior to these last 100 days was the week vacation I had at Cuckoo Lake, I'll admit, was really the whole summer was kind of lackluster. Especially when I compare it to 2021. And my vacation, I'll be honest, that vacation started off with a really harsh argument from my mom and I. I should have admitted that. That's not cool. Kind of ruined the week. Although one thing, actually, you know what? Thank God for the show Virgin River, because I just binge watched that the entire week I was up at Cuckoo Lake. It's a good show. I don't know why, it just is. So that happened. Now to get back to some of these last 100 days. Well, I mentioned Chick-fil-A closing because summer's over, and when summer becomes fall and we're heading into winter right now, it gets cold. It gets miserable. A lot of people don't like the cold. I don't blame them. So, that was a sort of bad thing that happened. And, I mean, I made no secret in the past that I do see a therapist. And for pretty much the entire month of November, I couldn't see him at all. Because he was having back surgery. In fact, I actually didn't see him until just one Friday night late in November when my mom and dad and I were shopping at Sam's Club and we just happened to run into my therapist. So needless to say, the surgery went well. That's great. That's wonderful. Oh yeah, speaking of hospital-related incidences, my grandfather needed a pacemaker. That was a bit of a scare. I got kind of emotional. It was easily the most scared I think I've ever been since I started making videos. So, emotionally, a lot of things happened. But you notice that so far I've only talked about all the bad stuff. Well, while I probably have beaten this to death already, while I'm still trying to navigate my life through a rather difficult heartbreak, I can tell you that I need these last 100 days to be filled with a lot of emotion. Like, there was more than one time where I needed a good cry. And good God, am I glad for that. Because, straight up, I think these last 100 days have made up for what 2022 was. I really and truly think that way. I mean, yeah, we're about to close the Q8, but it's not like we closed it right away. I mean, we still went up all throughout September, and the very time you hit in October, that happened. I got to watch Horseheads football play. We really weren't that good, but, you know, it's still fun to support my old alma mater. That was great. There were a few holidays that happened. I mean, Halloween and Thanksgiving were great. Veterans Day, also very great as well. Hot Ones Season 19 in full effect. It's been great so far, although I think the season is coming to an end very soon. The Masked Singer just recently ended with quite possibly the best season finale from that show I've ever seen. I finished watching all through the Cuphead show, and Inside Job came out with season 2. Finished watching Call of the Night as well. A few really good Christmas movies I talked about, specifically It's a Wonderful Life, which also instigated a really good cry, and Klaus, which didn't quite make me cry, but man, I was feeling the feels. And speaking of moments that make me cry, without question, the two best moments of these last 100 days came in the form of not one, but 2 weddings I went to. One in late September and one in early November. The former was actually a kid that I grew up with, who was my neighbor. And he and his family moved away, and actually, they moved kind of a lot, I think. I know they were in like Massachusetts for a little while, but then he moved back to Horseheads, and he's a year older than me, so he graduated a year before me, but he was also my teammate in football as well. He got married, and the other November, then the other, and the latter wedding was my cousin, who got married down in Houston. So, first time I ever went to Houston. First time in my life I have ever been in the state of Texas. And yeah, I know there's kind of a stereotype that, you know, oh, Texas is just the big cities like Dallas and Houston and Austin, and then you have hundreds of miles of nothing. Well, maybe, but when that nothing consists of wide open spaces with beautiful scenery, yeah, I'll take that. Seriously, the state of Texas is beautiful. I highly recommend you, if you have an opportunity to go, I highly recommend you do it. But the actual weddings themselves that I went to were easily the two best times of these last 100 days. For the simple fact that at these weddings, I'll be honest, I cried. I had myself a really good cry at both weddings. I mean, maybe it's because, well, I'll be getting into this particular thing a little over a week from now. But because of a certain thing that happened last year, it's given me a much grander perspective on life. So when I went to my friend's wedding and my cousin's wedding, just telling myself that, man, I'm actually here. I am able to bear witness to these people getting married and starting lives with, you know, the people that they're marrying. I got to see that, you know, with my friend's wedding. Seriously, at my friend's wedding, there were people I hadn't seen in like well over a decade. And for one particular person, like 14 years. Actually, a couple people for like 14 years. And it was just so great to see them. I'm like, man, I'm at this wedding with all these people I hadn't seen in years. I feel like, honestly, the feeling that I had inside, I feel like should have been the feeling I had all throughout my time in Horseheads. And don't worry, I'll get to further explanation on that just a little over a week from now. Trust me on that. And then there was, during the first wedding, like I started, like I'm surrounded by all these people. And I was just so happy that, you know, tears started rolling down my eyes. Actually, it's so weird. One of the people I hadn't seen in so long was someone who for a long time I absolutely hated. And it took over a decade for me to actually forgive him. And when I did that, and he actually I think he saw me with tears in his eyes, so he pats me out on the back or whatever. I'm like, I needed that. It was so nice. And then there was my cousin's wedding. I already started filling up with emotion at that wedding, but there's actually a certain blessing. And it was that blessing that ultimately got me to cry. Because if you've ever been watching me for any given period of time, there's a certain Irish blessing that I know verbatim. And it's the Irish blessing that I am going to be saying again in just over a week from now. But why not? It was during that wedding, my cousin's wedding, when the priest said, "May the road rise to meet you. May the wind be ever at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face, and the rain fall softly on your fields. And until we meet again, may the Lord hold you in the palm of his hand." And that's when he got me. I started crying. I would ultimately tell my cousin that I cried, and she really liked that. I mean, crying at weddings is, pretty normal. It's a beautiful thing. It's a natural thing, which I'd like to point out, people, it's okay to cry. It is. If you want further vindication of that, watch the movie Inside Out. Okay? Do that. That's what you should do. And, it was great. And you know what? I think I came to the conclusion as to why both weddings ultimately made me cry. Well, foremost, because honestly, every wedding I've been to since, the last legit good wedding I think I've been to was in 2012 when my brother's best friend got married and I was invited to go. My brother was actually the best man at that wedding. Every other wedding I'd been to after that, started out from being either mildly annoying or mildly inconvenient to just sheer bad. I'll put it to you that way. But the last two weddings I've been to were not remotely like that. In fact, you know what? I developed a theory. If I'm crying at the wedding, it's a good wedding. Straight up. If I'm crying at the wedding, it's gonna be a good wedding. So how funny would it be if I actually got invited to a bunch of weddings? So, Nick Cutler says if he cries, it's gonna be a good wedding. Let's see if he can get him to cry our wedding. How funny would that be? If that happened. I mean, it's a wedding, so he gives me an opportunity to dress nice, and I wouldn't mind going. Yeah, I'd do it, sure. But ultimately, the common theme in both weddings that got me to cry was, actually, before I continue, another thing that happened, Wendell and Wild. That was a good movie. Okay, so the common theme at both weddings that I went to was, on both occasions, they were the first times I'd been to a wedding where, and this also has to do with the previous weddings I've been to before, where I'd be at the wedding, sitting, in the pews in the audience, looking up there and obviously finding the union between the two people on the altar remarkable, with the exception of the last wedding I've been to in 2018. Yeah, that wedding was a bad one for sure. Where I sit there in the audience, I'm thinking, it's the union. I mean, I want to make one thing clear. Every wedding I've ever been to, from 2012 onwards till obviously the last one in late September, the one common thing that was always good was that the union was beautiful. Again, except for the very last one. The union between the groom and the bride, or bridegroom, that was beautiful. I'm never going to dispute that. But I would always say to myself, that's not me. And it's never going to be me up there. And I think what changed that for me happened back in 2021. And trust me, I'll elaborate more on that just over a week from now. Because after said thing that happened in 2021, I mentioned how it gave me a brand new perspective. And every wedding I've been to since, I would say to myself, that may not be me up there, but someday it will be. And I just found it so beautiful. I really did. Okay, I gotta move this along before I start crying. And you know what? I think the perfect way to have ended these past 100 days was literally just this. I mean, actually, I didn't even talk about the birthdays. There were a lot of birthdays, especially in the month of November. My twin nephews turned 3. My mom and my sister-in-law had birthdays on the 21st and the 23rd. Not to mention a whole bunch of people I know had birthdays in November. Yeah, there's a lot of birthdays in the month of November. There's also a lot of birthdays in the month of December too. Particularly one particular person who I ran into at Sparkle. Yeah, Sparkle is great. Honestly, I don't think there was a better way I could have ended these last 100 days than this past weekend. Where, you know, I went to Sparkle and walked around town, hung out with some nice people, very nice people, saw other people who were also very nice, ran into someone who happened to be her birthday, and I just happened to give, and for a little birthday present, I just happened to give them a jar of pickles. That was really cool. I mean, yeah, this is just a great way to end the last 100 days. Although, I mentioned how for my NFL picks, I'm 10-3-1 for this week. Win number 10 came from the fact that my Cowboys won last night. So that's a really great way to end these last 100 days. So, I mean, I know I just said earlier that these last 100 days kind of made up for 2022 overall. Mostly that's true. I'm going to wait to have final judgment until the year is, I mean, come on, we're already in the month of December. The year is almost over. In fact, it's December 5th right now, so we literally have 26 days left. So let's wait out the next 26 days, and I can give a further evaluation, you know, on New Year's Eve. That's honestly when I should do it. But right now, it's looking like 2022 was salvaged. Enough said. I'd like to end this video, because normally when I do the state of my being address, if you couldn't tell, I mentioned the state of my being address provides a platform and an opportunity to elaborate on my feelings. Obviously, considering what I just said, I'm feeling pretty damn good right now. No questions asked. But again, something could always happen. With that said, knowing what's going to be coming in just over a week from now, take a shot for every time I said just over a week from now. With what's coming up soon, and considering that I had finally seen my therapist again after him having, you know, back surgery, which he's doing very well with, by the way. My therapist had told me, because normally I end the state of my being address with, you know, an important quote that sort of sticks out to me and, you know, that sort of summarizes everything. With what's coming up next week, I feel that the best quote is actually one by Mark Twain that my therapist told me about. Mark Twain once said, "The two most important days of a person's life are the day that they're born and the day that they find out why. Well, I got the first one down. That second one, I may not know the answer, but I'll say this. Come just over a week from now, I'll definitely come closer to finding that answer, having realized what I know. So, if you've been with me for the last 100 days, you know, obviously thank you for all your love and support. Here's to hoping, and you know, there's a lot to look forward to these next 100 days. I mean, we got Christmas coming up, New Year's Eve, and New Year's Day, Valentine's Day, Martin Luther King Day too. Yeah, we're just going to barely miss St. Patrick's Day, but that's fine, because day 1900 to day 2000, holy cow, we're actually almost at 2,000 days right now. Wow. I really have come a long way. So, there's a lot of holidays coming up that I'm looking forward to. My birthday's at the end of this month. That's going to be really cool. My father's birthday is in February. Can't wait for that. Yeah. I'm feeling pretty darn optimistic about the very end of this year. And the beginning of next year, for sure. I mean, don't get me wrong. Something could always happen to completely derail it. I know that. I understand that. I respect that idea. But you know what? Overall, I'm feeling pretty okay right now. It's almost as if the state of my being is pretty darn solid. So, I hope y'all liked this video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on social media. Go Cowboys! As always, I am very humble that I made this video. For all you guys watching, enjoy for today. And also, let's go Buffalo. I am... I'm not just humble, I'm beyond humble. I'm beyond humble that these past 100 days have been filled with birthdays, holidays, 2 of the best weddings I've ever been to, hands down. My Dallas Cowboys and the Bills are doing great right now. Not to mention, these last few weeks I ran into a bunch of wonderful people. You know who you are. Yeah. I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. Oh, and you know what? One last thing. The Masked Singer. The Masked Singer happened. I'm trying to cover all the angles here. Actually, I think I talked about the Masked Singer ending. Actually, I did talk about that earlier. Darn it. Okay. I'm just so excited. These last 100 days were good, guys. They weren't just good, they were great. I mean, I can only say I almost completely forgot how bad 2022 was looking. But you know what? The fact that these last 100 days pretty much made me forget all that, it salvaged 2022. So you know what? I'm beyond humbled. I got here. I got to this point that I'm standing here, or actually sitting here right now. I'm hopeful. I mean, I can only hope that every 100 days from now on is going to be pretty much like this. Obviously, I know it's not going to happen. I'm optimistic, but real recognize real. So of course, I'll remain hopeful that they are good, though, at least in some way, shape, or form. But as always, remember, if any of you guys want to talk or chat, I'm always going to be here to lend an ear. I'll always have your back. Take care and make good choices. 607 all day, baby. And I have to get him out of this chair and reach over to the camera. Oh, goodness. It feels so comfortable, though. I want to talk some more. Man, it was so good, guys. It was. I'm happy. I'm thrilled. But I also know that there's something rather emotional coming soon. Yeah, that Mark Twain quote, how I mentioned that the two most important days of a person's life are when they're born, when they find out why. I'm going to need you guys to remember that for next week. But until then, have a nice day.